made some mistakes with money. I inherited a little bit of money. A lot of it was locked in a trust account. And that little bit of money that I got, it was like, I went to the Ford dealership and bought a Mustang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I made some serious mistakes. And I really, after making those mistakes, started to understand what money meant. I knew what compound interest was. I took, grade 9 math.
Yep.
But understanding the power of how bonds and compound interest work. And then I dove into understanding risk models in underwriting. And I thought, gosh, managing a mutual fund where I can just sit behind a desk and not talk to anybody. This is my jam.
Hello, everybody. This is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast, where I talk to top performing business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and local Winnipeg celebrities. I get to learn who they are and how they think, and I get to hear their perspective about what's really going on in Winnipeg and their businesses. Today on the podcast, we have Chad Wilson, the owner and principal broker at Ideal Mortgage Solutions. With an education in business, several years experience in the financial markets, and some of the best customer service available, Chad is able to work dozens of lenders across Canada's mortgage landscape and negotiate the very best terms for his clients. I'm really interested to dive into things with Chad, as mortgages are not generally fully understood by most. And I don't believe that most truly understand what a broker is and what they are able to do for you. So let's dive in and learn something. Mr. Chad Wilson, thanks for being here. So I never really understood what a values-based company meant, right? Like, you see all these mission statements, you see like, here's our values, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, really? Is that really your shit? Mm-hmm. But when I discovered my values, that's when I really was like, okay, this is what makes my life successful. This is how we're going to run my business. Because if it works here, it's going to work here. And what I've found is the more I talk about honesty and integrity and transparency and communication and relationships, the more I find the right people are around more often, and I'm not getting the wrong people slipping through the cracks. They're less and less.
I feel the same way. I mean, my value proposition is very, very important to me in my business and in my life, and it changes. I've got a slogan for my business: Ideal Mortgage Solutions, Ideal Rate, Service, and Advice. But if I had to rename that today, I don't know what it would be, but somewhere in the context of sort of integrity and value, and it's. I've understood that there's a side effect of having success, and a lot of people, I think, in my business have recognized, certainly locally, but even nationally, I've been recognized a number of times for having success in our business. And the measurement of success to me is not any of that. It's what's in my head, and it's pivoted to the side effects of success. So how good of a dad am I? Am I home for dinner? She'd kill me if she ever heard this, but my daughter's going on her first date on Thursday night, and I want to be present, right? So these are things that are really, really exciting.
3 right now.
Okay, so, well, you got something to look forward to in 10, 13 years. Maybe.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a milestone.
Yeah. My priorities have really changed. I mean, business is still very, very important to me, and I don't really work. I just go to the office and do something I love. I have for the last 21 years.
I feel like personal success, and I think I'm crazy in my own head compared to everyone else. And I'm probably not, but I think that I am. The days that I feel successful, I would say, are more so than before. But there are many times where I don't feel successful. And I think that is that's like this nagging little thing, right? That I really have to go back to those things, as far as be like, okay, if I had $20 million or made $1 million a month, but I was a shitty dad and a shitty person, and I had a shitty marriage, would I be able to say I'm successful? And I think the reframing part is really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge one. But on the business front, like, because I don't feel successful or uber successful, we'll say, is that it also affects how much I want to share or how much I want to put out there. I think stuff like this really makes me like just put myself out there. And I mean, we're not talking about my specialty, right? But at the same time, who am I to have a podcast? So
I think it's a really cool idea. It's a good way to get to know Winnipeggers and really get to know you, Dan. I mean, anybody I've talked to says speaks the world of you. So
you come recommended from Jared. Jared's not only used you, but considers you a friend, and that's important because that means to me that you guys probably value a lot of the same things. Which, if you know Jared, honesty. I've never met a more honest guy. The funny thing is he's a car salesman.
Yeah.
Right. To put it simplistically, but and so how much do you think about honesty and transparency and integrity? Is that an active thought, or is that just something that's always been inside of you?
It's 100%. It's the conversations that I carry on with clients day in and day out are all related to that. I don't sell anything. Oftentimes I'm dissecting another product or sort of consideration that somebody is making, and I've been brought in to either consult, not sell, but as a result of transparency and honesty and just doing the hard math.
Right.
I win a lot of those clients.
Yeah. Here's the facts.
Right. Yeah.
we can't mess with facts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to get to your background in a bit, but one of the big things that I want is like, why don't people use mortgage brokers more often? And second part, what are the different types of mortgage brokers? Because they are not all the same.
No, I would agree. And I think there's a connection relationship piece that's important there. You need to feel comfortable with who you're releasing your financial information to, and be comfortable that they're giving you good information. So I think just that connection that way is very important. I mean, if you're going in blind to the internet and getting a mortgage,
or just walking into the bank.
Well, yeah. Right? I mean, you really don't know what you're going to walk into. And I mean, service is an important thing in the real estate transaction. You're spending a lot of money, and generally the most amount of money that anybody's ever going to spend. It's their largest investment, the largest debt they'll ever have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just understanding their perspective and having some care and advice. I look at myself as sort of a niche brokerage, a niche broker that specializes in more mortgage planning than mortgage brokering. It's part of the job.
Okay. What does that mean?
Mortgage planning might be, longtime client of mine calls me up and my son is buying his first house, but he's not ready yet. What should he do to get ready? Nice. I have no hesitation in spending the hour, whether it be through video, in person, or over the phone, to help them prepare and put him on the right path. And sometimes he doesn't write that mortgage for 2 years.
Right.
Those leads have piled up and they're hot. So, once they start closing, it's just a domino effect of really good leads that will never leave you.
Yeah.
The flip side of it is there's digital mortgage brokers that want to do the math, and it's garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
So they only know what you put in there.
Yep.
And people unfortunately make some decisions based on the results of some of those applications sometimes. So that's another way to do business. And then there's mortgage brokers that I sort of put in the C bucket. And when I say the C bucket, there's some really great people that work in that space, but they focus more on the private stuff. Okay. So it's the off-grid, doesn't conform. Maybe the interest rate's got to be higher.
Are we talking like subprime lenders, private lenders?
Yeah, I mean, I really, really don't like, and no offense for using it, but I really don't like the word subprime per se. Yep. Just it's got bad context with 2008.
That's fair.
But I'm going to just, there's a lot of situations of divorce, high debt loads, and Band-Aids need to exist to fix problems with credit or income.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm not going to do one of those sort of B-type, higher rate type products for somebody if it's not a short-term solution. So I think in some markets, there's brokers that will focus on just churning over those types of deals to make a living that way. They're just really good at them. And what I don't understand is the pedigree of buyer that you're getting, or the person sort of making those payments and getting comfortable with it. I think we've just been in an environment for 4 or 5 years, maybe more, that cash flow has allowed them to pay big interest costs. And it's been okay because the value of their home has continued to go up and up and up and up.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we're seeing some fallout from that now.
Yeah. What's the biggest difference for anyone that doesn't know? What's the biggest difference between a mortgage specialist and a mortgage broker?
Mortgage specialist works for a bank.
Okay.
Mortgage broker works for the client. Dan, if I was putting a mortgage together for you, I'm representing you to a number of lenders, not vice versa.
To me, when I first heard about mortgage brokers years and years and years and years ago, when I was explained what you guys do, it blew my mind why you're not on every single mortgage, right? Why is there not a mortgage broker behind every single, being the client advocate for that client, shopping out what they need to, versus walking into a bank and just like trying to pick the best thing that might work for them or whatever they get sold? Why is it that people don't use a mortgage broker?
They do. I mean, that our market share has grown substantially. We have to remember that there's a lot of people in this country that have mortgages. And a large, maybe the second largest demographic in our country are the baby boomers who, they are married to their banks. I can't fix that. But the generations coming up and behind them, they're using mortgage brokers.
Right.
Even the banks themselves are creating systems to try and circumvent the whole retail relationship. They didn't do it very successfully, but there was a big red bank that came out with an app basically that tried to approve a mortgage in 30 seconds, and it just hasn't worked. I believe that in the mortgage business that you need to have a head behind the file. Not every file fits the way that it needs to, and there's a relationship that needs to be leveraged with the lenders sometimes to help them understand the value in that client.
Right.
That no piece of paper or number will tell them.
Yeah. Well, I've been through a lot of different types of deals that have taken somebody that not only went to bat for me, but also that could understand the intricacies of what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to buy a primary residence and, I'm either selling this house or whatever. There's usually a lot of stuff going on. And what I've found is the good mortgage brokers really can balance a lot of those plates as far as like painting the picture for all the lenders.
Yeah, I'm criticized in our business, and when I say, I'm self-employed by accident. I like mortgage brokering. I don't necessarily love the whole dynamics of running people, which is why I don't have a huge mortgage brokerage. All of the brokers that work in my office are very well experienced. But I have a strong focus on the lender themselves. Like, Dan, my client is my client, of course, but the lender is also my client.
Yep.
If I'm a good
that relationship's really
it's
important.
So important. I spent a lot of time on it. So, if you have I'm not going to point out any sort of names, but if you've got, I'll call it your latest bot mortgage application that sends in mortgage applications, they're sending them to the same place I am, but they're only funding 30, 40% of them. They got an underwriter on the other side of those things, looking at those things, getting paid $100,000 a year. So that, if they're only funding 20 or 30% of those deals, that underwriter just got a lot more expensive.
Right.
So I've always taken a lot of pride in my business that when I'm going to sit down and do proper planning with people, I want to get some level of commitment from them, make them a promise of and make a commitment back to them, and sort of give them a promise as to what to expect for service and product and all that good stuff. But my aim is to fund 100% of everything I send to these lenders. Yeah. And as a result of that, we've grown into, $175 million mortgage shop that's very, very small annually, that funds 98% of everything we do.
It's a good batting average.
Right. Yeah. So my underwriter's just gotten 70% less expensive at the lender's office. So they pick up the phone for me and, they help our folks get a mortgage that they may not have got otherwise.
Right. So take me through, give me a little background about, what path you followed coming out of either school or university, business school, right?
Yeah.
Take me through that. How did that work?
I mean, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, but I'll give you the lay of the land as to how I ended up where I am today. Grew up in Portage-la-Prairie, small town.
Yep.
Dad was a roofer, part-time, and had a roofing company part-time. And he was a psychiatric nurse in an institution in Portage-la-Prairie and did the roofing thing so I could play hockey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mom and dad died when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
I was in grade 10. And, I had some siblings, but I was sort of a late I was late. I was a late child. So I, for the most part, grew up an only child at home. My youngest sibling was 8 years older than me.
Okay.
So, and they had sort of gone on by the time this had all happened. And, long story short, I ended up in an apartment at 16 years old, and I didn't know the first thing about managing money. Every aspiration that I had to play hockey. I probably wasn't going anywhere, but we were all just sort of crushed, right? And I just I had to pivot, and I learned the value of $1 that I think most 50 or 60-year-olds sometimes in this day and age are just learning now. I learned it young, and I became obsessed with finance. So, I didn't have all the money in the world to go to the greatest universities, etc. I had to scrape together some cash to get a business diploma at Red River College, and I was able to leverage that into some other designation type stuff that put me where I am today. So, I think the greatest. I'm not going to take anything away from education. I have a tremendous amount of respect for education for sure. But maybe the greatest line I've ever heard in a movie was in Good Will Hunting, when they're in that bar and he says to that guy who's sort of insulting him, he says to him, "You paid $150,000 for an education. You could have got for $1.50 in late charges at the public library."
Right. Yeah.
That resonated with me, and it stuck with me. And it's kind of how I run my life. Like, I've taken a lot of courses and I got some letters behind my name. But the most important thing for me has been to always be learning, sitting here right now, learning.
Mm-hmm.
And, I once heard a busker that had fallen by hard times in Montreal, sitting on the side of the street, playing a guitar song I couldn't figure out. I sat on the street with him and learned how to play that song. So yeah, just being that kind of character.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, I came out of business school and I decided I wanted to be a fixed income mutual fund manager. So I wanted to work in the markets. The business of money was extremely fascinating to me. And, so I, started to understand how mutual funds work and how bonds work, and just really, really digging in there. And
were you attracted to that learning that kind of stuff, like math, very detailed stuff early on? Or was this just something that kind of piqued your interest and you?
I think I was always reasonably good at math,
okay.
But didn't really have a path or a direction. Didn't really know what the heck was up when I, at that young age. But I made some mistakes with money. I inherited a little bit of money. A lot of it was locked in a trust account, and that little bit of money that I got, it was like, I went to the Ford dealership and bought a Mustang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I made some serious mistakes, and I really, after making those mistakes, started to understand what money meant. And that just, I think I read the book many, many times. A very simple read anyway.
Yeah.
It talks about compound interest. And, I knew what compound interest was. I took, grade 9 math.
Yep.
But understanding the power of how bonds and compound interest work, and just understand, and then that sort of I dove into understanding risk models in underwriting, and I thought, gosh, managing a mutual fund where I can just sit behind a desk and not talk to anybody. This is my jam. Like but who's going to hire me?
Right.
I'm going to go get a CFA. I'm going to move to Toronto and work for somebody else till they retire, and then hopefully get their spot. Well, lo and behold, like I met a girl in a bar, and my aspirations of at the time I was working for an investment company trying to weasel my way into a mutual fund management sort of capacity, and I needed to move to Toronto, but I met a girl. She didn't want to go there. She was a farmer's daughter, and so I thought I'd try this mortgage brokering thing. Like, who in the world would invest or give their money to or take mortgage advice from a kid in his early 20s that looked 10 years younger? But I just had to know more than everybody else.
So you stayed in Winnipeg for the girl to dive into mortgage brokering. What is it about Winnipeg that you either love or that has really kept you here?
I like the seasons, first of all. I always thought I wanted to be in the city in a condo type environment where I had very low maintenance and I could work forever. Mm-hmm. My wife, on the other hand, grew up on a farm, wanted a couple of acres, and I've just learned to love that life. Mm. So you couldn't now, I had a good friend of mine who's a very big producing mortgage broker from Toronto come and stay with me last summer, and he stayed on my property, and we, it's a couple of acres, and it's like there's flashlights in the sky at night. It's peaceful. Mm-hmm.
Are you
blown away?
Where are you? Are you outside the perimeter?
Yeah, we're right on the west edge of Headingley.
Okay.
It's considered the municipality of St. Francis Xavier, and we're right in along the Assiniboine River in the bush.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
it's nice there.
Lots of wildlife, and we cross country ski into Beaudry Park.
Yeah.
I just don't know that I could get that anywhere else.
Are most of your clients local? Are they, like, now with COVID and everyone moving online, has your client base changed? Are you still very local? Are you all over the place?
I've funded mortgages in every province in this country throughout my career. There's some licensing stuff that comes into play when you're doing business outside of provinces. Okay. It's very time consuming, expensive to maintain licenses in all of those provinces. So I have connections with other firms that we sort of play off one another in doing that. Certainly more work when I do it that way. So it's not my focus. My focus would be more local Manitoba.
Yep.
COVID, silver linings of COVID, it turned me into, it took a chunk out of my soul. Like I think it did for a lot of people. But we were incredibly busy. Our business grew by 35% in COVID.
Wow.
And I was down 2 staff trying to work from home managing kids. I still paid them, and they still, God bless them, they tried to work when they could.
Yep. But
it's tough when you got toddlers.
Oh yeah.
But what it made me into a productivity machine. Video was now accepted by, your 55-year-old client that they didn't know what Zoom was before COVID.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a good majority of them.
Yep.
Now, when I give people the option to meet in a 15, 20 minute Zoom call to sort of go through documents, they jump on that. They don't have to park, try and get, line up a coordinated in-person time. And I stopped driving to clients' homes years ago, not because I don't want to. Those are some of my favorite meetings, but we run about 600 transactions a year through our office, and you just can't do it all.
Right. Yeah. And you have to wear pants.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I definitely have a cool setup at home.
Yeah.
I love working from home. The dynamics aren't always awesome when I've got an admin team in the office. So I try to be present as much as I can. But yeah, I've got a rotation of 3 shirts. My wife often reminds me, it's time to wash the shirts.
That's fair.
This is, lining up for a phone call, and I'm like getting dressed in the mirror. And
one of my favorite things is seeing somebody in front of their computer setup and tops business and bottoms party.
Right.
Right. Just like shorts, flip-flops.
Yeah.
They're loving life.
I think I often wondered. My wife now works from home full time,
Oh, nice.
and
What does she do?
so she's the what's her title? She's the manager of community relations for Access Credit Unions,
Oh, okay.
which is now the largest credit union in Manitoba with
Okay.
52 branches, I think.
Oh,
So they're a big organization.
yeah.
She's a busy girl. I couldn't be prouder of her. Like, she has been an amazing wife, been an amazing mom, and just killing it at work.
Nice.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
2, 13 and 11.
Nice.
You?
I've got a 9-year-old boy. I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and I've got a 22-week pregnant wife.
Awesome.
So she's done all the first trimester sick and puking and hating her life. Even though she won't admit hating her life. She's just a little angel. But in the second trimester, and she's feeling better and getting bigger and stuff.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Those are incredible years. I had my blinders on, when the kids were young. I always had this vision. I don't focus on success. To me, success is defined by only me. And when I say that, it's really the side effects of the success and how I manage those things that will dictate whether or not I'm successful in my own head. And it's really those things when the kids were young, and I'm trying to build a business, and it requires a lot of time and effort. And I always thought I would be this dad that, I'd walk in the door and the kids would run to you, and, you're the hero. That's what my dad was in the house. Mm-hmm. And that's the dad I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. But nope, my phone's ringing and it doesn't stop. And there's always something urgent. And I just didn't know how to shut my phone off. Mm. So if I have any regret, I regret not learning what I know now. And I think I learned it from those hard times.
Exactly.
How to put the phone away, and don't be afraid to tell people that you're on a little family time right now. And it's amazing that they understand. Yeah.
Well, whatever pain that probably caused, whether it was, between you and your kids, or you and your wife, or you and yourself, and the guilt and shame,
that's what it comes down
right?
to. Yeah.
That is the only thing that probably precipitated that change, right? Because without it, you never change.
Right.
So you kind of have to go through it. Like, it's very strange. I have this weird thing about success. Like, success is just a weird concept. And as you talk about it, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm waiting for the day that I can park that completely. But there was also that part of me that thought, okay, if everything hit this year, and let's say we made $3, $5, $10 million, would it change me if that's what we were making? And if we didn't make it, I thought, I'm probably not ready for it. Like, something about this I'm not ready for. There's a lesson that I need to learn. There's a character trait I'm missing, or a skill set, or like something that's not in me, or that I haven't done yet, that, damn it, let me figure it out. Like, now I got to go back and figure it out. Like, it's been a weird journey.
Yeah, it's always something. I mean, money, it's a funny topic. Like, I certainly don't look at anybody's bank account as a measurement of success. That's for sure. But money is a powerful thing, in the sense that if you, and I've said this to many people before, but if I won that $60 million, I think it was $60 million recently. I think I saw it.
Somebody in Winnipeg
won it. Amazing. Good for them. Yeah. If I won $60 million, I wouldn't change a single thing about my life, but I would geek out on how I could set up perpetuities.
Yeah.
Do the math with that money that would pay the things that I think need to be paid, or I can contribute to whether it be charities or otherwise, in perpetuity.
How do you feel about whole life policies? Have you dived into that?
Yeah. So I have, not to get into too much detail, I guess, with this, but I have 2 corporations, and my holding company has a PAR policy, very similar set up. And I think it's a wonderful tax planning tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We in Canada, I think there's a few things that, so the States is good and bad, right? Like loosey-goosey banking, but at the same time, they have some insane stuff for investing and like writing off your mortgage interest. But their whole life policies, are you kidding me? Yeah. They are insane. I think it was maybe 5 years ago that they closed a loophole in Canada that allowed you to...
it was a maximum. They just drew it back to 90%. Yeah.
Yeah. So they closed that up a little bit. It didn't kill it, but it just made it a little less lucrative, I suppose.
I've always looked at that kind of stuff, and it's funny, like people who have these things will always be criticized, I think, for, thinking that they're sort of trying to hide taxes or save taxes or whatever. But at the end of the day, like when I look at an entrepreneur, I look at a lot of financial statements for self-employed folks. Maybe they had a good year last year. Maybe they had a bad year the year before. I mean, on top of all of that stuff, they need to be able to manage their cash flow. So I've always looked at my business as I'm an employee to myself. So, if I made X amount of dollars this year and negative X amount of dollars the following year, my paycheck wouldn't change.
Right.
I just want the government to understand and tax me appropriately based on the cash flow that I need to live.
Right.
So allowing people to defer taxes, I think, is a wonderful tax planning tool. And if we want to keep doctors coming to Canada, having entrepreneurs succeed and stay in Canada, we need to have shelter for them.
Yeah, we're a little slow here in Canada. We're behind.
You get punished to be successful, that's for sure.
Yes, you do. In different locations, worse than others, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of entrepreneurship, you started your own business, right? Take me through what it was like starting and the hardships that you went through then compared to anything that's difficult now.
Sure. I still to this day struggle with being a bit of a control freak. I think I broker and I run my business as a brokerage differently than others.
Okay.
And that's not throwing stones at anybody.
In what way? Yeah.
It's very boutique. I'm very hands-on. And I don't manage people well, but I expect them to manage themselves well.
Right.
So, and if they don't, we're just not a good fit. I have an amazing team in my office. We're all on the same page. And it's really hard to add good people that think like us. So I think that's how we're a little bit different. I roll up my sleeves and put in more hours in the office than anybody in our organization. And there's some amazing people that work with us. So I want to stay sort of on the tools. In my early days, I just didn't want to be with another brokerage. I wanted to be an independent brokerage.
Yeah.
That was very difficult to do, to create any volume and have any buying power, but I tried it for years. Left money on the table doing it. And I was looking after all of the paperwork. I was doing all the books. I was brokering the mortgages, trying to find the clients. It was exhausting. And hence, I wasn't home a lot for my young children.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, so I tried, I'm like, okay, my wife is trying to find, we need some help. So I'm going to hire somebody in the admin role. And I went through 3 admin that sat there and did nothing all day long. And I wasn't sure what to tell them what to do. And it's like I couldn't let go and trust somebody else to fail to learn from that and move on. And it wasn't until Ellen, who's with me today, she's kind of my right hand partner in crime at the office. Amazing personality, worked in the banking system for a long, long time. She came back off a mat leave and I had a posting out to hire somebody. She's like, why haven't you called me? And I said, well, Ellen, I can't afford you. And she's like, try me. Long story short, I think her wage doubled or tripled in the first year. She added so much darn value.
Yeah.
And, it took her kicking me aside and taking stuff away from me to understand that I'm not the only guy that can do this. And it's still a struggle for me to this day.
Yeah. Do you have a bonus structure? Do you have commission structure for your employees? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 6 agents other than myself in the office who are straight up commission.
Okay. Are they brokers?
They're brokers.
Okay.
Yeah. So they go out, they source their own clients, they fund their own clients. We sort of put our heads together at times when they need to be put together. We represent ourselves together to the lenders.
Okay. Yep.
So we're as a group, right? It's power in numbers.
Yep.
And then we have 2 admin that primarily work with me. One that sort of helps with compliance. A lot of paperwork in our business, unfortunately. And, the other full-time admin, Ellen, who I was talking about, is, just a straight up amazing person. Like, she's just got a wonderful personality. People love her.
Yep.
Where I'm good at math. I'm good at negotiating with lenders. She's just willing to listen to the stories that I used to listen to when I used to go to people's homes years ago. But, we need to stay ultra efficient now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's taken me a long time to let go. And as I get older, I'm starting to let go of more and more.
Yeah. How old are you now?
47. I just turned 47.
Lots of time left. A lot of time left.
Yeah. And, on that note, like, I was a super active guy, played a lot of hockey, worked out a lot. And when you sit at a desk all day long, and then you turn 40, you realize that it hurts to get up.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I got this other problem in my life I got to deal with. So, I've just loved starting to eat better, and over the last few years, and just make sure I exercise, stretch, all the things we should be doing.
I tore my L4, L5 about 13 years ago.
Oh gosh, you've recovered?
Ish. I don't know if there's ever been a day where I didn't have pain.
Yeah.
I'm really good at dealing with pain.
Yeah.
Like it's always there. Some days worse than others, but it's been a journey and an adventure. That's for sure.
Until you have low back pain and you start to talk to other people that deal with low back pain, you realize how many people, there's a ton of people that deal with daily low back pain.
Mm-hmm.
I have a herniated L4 and 5 as well.
Oh yeah.
I had sciatic pain to the degree where I couldn't sleep, and I was on some medication for a while. That was a rabbit hole that I didn't understand what I was doing until a police officer friend of mine that worked in the major crimes unit, the RCMP, explained to me that what I was taking was saleable on the street for $20 a pill. That was an eye opener.
So then you made a ton of money.
Honestly, I was on this stuff, Tramadol, gabapentin, which is like a nerve numbing medication. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just listening to the doctor, and I had pain.
Yeah.
And I went off all that stuff. And upon the advice of a pain clinic doctor, actually went to see a yoga therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Game changer.
Amazing.
I do it every morning now. And it's been a total game changer for me.
Yeah. I think that there's so many different modalities that people have to try, because it's so funny. Like, you'll find someone and they swear by this one. They swear by this one. And not only that, I've been through so many of them where it's worked and my body's changed, and then it stopped working. And then I have to go find something else, and I do it for, a few years. And then, okay, if I want my body to do this or over here, then it moves on, right? Like, you name it, I've done it and tried it and worked in it. And it's a journey, that's for sure.
People oftentimes in business, I know I'm part of some communities and sit on some boards and stuff. And we have these meetings in other cities sometimes. And we often talk about, like, what are you chasing? And I talk about it. I'm like, I don't know that I'm chasing anything specific other than a feeling.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing I can compare it to is that spring day when you feel amazing, and it's maybe you just had a workout, and it's the first time you crack the sunroof and roll the window down.
Yeah.
You smell the spring air, and it's that feeling when you turn the music up. Like, that's what I chase.
Yeah.
And it requires a healthy body and a healthy life and all that kind of stuff to feel like that.
Yeah. There was a guy that caught me off guard at the gym once, and he was like, "What are you training for?" And I was probably doing something stupid. He's like, "What are you training for?" And I just remember turning to him and I said, "I don't know, life." Like, I don't know what else to tell you here.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't anything. There is a nagging question I have about, so a lot of younger brokers, whether they listen to this or not, are probably looking for anything that they can hold on to as far as something that's going to work.
Mhm.
Business development, sales, marketing, branding, all that stuff kind of goes into, business development, right?
Mhm.
What have you focused on and what have you found has been the biggest value to you over the years in building your business, your clients, your relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know what that gas pedal is for me. There's a big glaring factor. I mean, and if you look at my social media profiles for business reasons, they're not very good. I don't spend a lot of time on them. They're things I probably should spend more time on. But in our business, everybody needs a mortgage.
Mhm.
An internet lead guy that I know really well, that's really good at what he does, said to me one day, he's like, "What's lead worth to you?" I said 0. And for me, that was my straight up answer. Like, I don't need my phone to ring.
Mhm.
I need my phone to ring for the right reasons, because there's a
Oh.
lot of people with mortgages out there.
Right.
And if, there's certain people that are in dire positions that I'm not going to hang up on these people, right? They'll blow you up on social media, or, you got to spend time with these people.
Mm.
So how do I make the phone ring for the right reasons?
Okay.
And eventually that young broker or the young Chad is going to write a deal. And this is something that I've always stayed true to in my database. Maybe I only have one client. Maybe I have 10 clients. I look back and I think, gosh, these 2 particular clients were awesome. Wait a minute. They were friends.
Hmm.
How do I meet these guys? How do I meet the people that they know? And any marketing budget that I've ever built has been around the data. So I have a CRM that that's a rabbit hole I could get down to. I've sort of built my own CRM years ago when I didn't like what was available out there.
Beautiful.
I built it out in kind of a web format where these people are all connected. This is interesting Winnipeg stuff. And it is insane how many times I'll get a call from a new prospective client, and I'll put their name in my profile, and all of a sudden I've got connections from 7 or 8 other people that I've already worked with.
Nice.
So, mapping that. So if I'm going to spend any level of marketing money on my clients, I'm going to spend them on those clients, understanding who my centers of influence are.
Right.
If I bought, unlike a realtor, where a realtor may want to generate those leads because anybody could be buying a house.
Right.
Not everybody qualifies for a mortgage. And some people will just eat you alive with your time. We don't get paid what realtors get paid. So you need to write a lot more widgets to be relevant.
Right.
So spending money on my database.
So you're saying you have you've narrowed it down to a specific avatar.
Sure.
Of client.
Yep.
And the message that you have to them to attract those things, you're saying, is how to make the phone ring for the right reason.
Yeah. So for somebody young coming in. Yeah, absolutely. How do you make the phone ring for the right reason?
And has that been through messaging? Have you been like, how are you, when you identified the kind of people you want, how are you attracting those type of people?
I listened to Biz Stone once. One of the founding members of Twitter, speak at a conference, and he talked a lot about sort of reach and just getting out to as many people as you wanted, or as you possibly could within the demographic that you wanted.
Okay.
And I thought, gosh, if you did that, you'd never get anything done. Like if all those people called you, like you wouldn't know how to handle it. Like you couldn't build the systems to deal with that volume fast enough.
Right.
So I don't know if that sort of, like my approach is just, find a client, fund a client, and then ask that client how he wants to hear from me. I'm not going to hit them with a drip email every week telling them about, stuff they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Because it'll break my heart when they unsubscribe.
Right.
I'm the kind of guy that will look at that and it'll crush me.
Do you not like me anymore?
Right. Yeah. I take it personally. So hey, do you want to hear from me? You got a variable rate. They make 8 variable rate Bank of Canada announcements in a year. I do a little bit of a write-up on it. I send it out to those clients. They appreciate it. It's in my own words. So I'm communicating in a way that they've asked me to communicate with them.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's effective.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wish that that people knew about either you, your business, or mortgage brokers in general that you find that they don't?
I think that there's a dark cloud over the word mortgage broker. I almost wish we could change the name of it. Years ago, you went to a mortgage broker because you couldn't get a mortgage. That's no longer the case. So mortgage brokers can add a lot of value. We've seen a lot of things, understanding. If I had to get a message out, actually, the message is the broker is the easy part. Helping the clients understand that, MCAP Mortgage Corporation in Canada is not Silicon Valley Bank and going broke, because they don't know who these lenders are. Mm-hmm. They make assumptions and they sort of draw conclusions based on certain information. These lenders don't do a lot of branding. They don't do a lot of advertising. But my hope is that someday there'll be enough mortgages out there. I'm using MCAP as an example, but they're a wonderful lender. There's a lot of other wonderful lenders just like them out there.
Yep.
These are massive Canadian financial institutions that provide a fantastic service. And in many cases, maybe not the size of the portfolios that banks have, but pretty darn close in some cases. So having clients understand that they may not have a Bank of Montreal mortgage, they may have an MCAP mortgage or a First National mortgage.
Yep.
Is just something that I look forward to seeing grow over time.
Right. Yeah. Just from my own experience, I've noticed I'm going to a lot of different lenders, right? Than the big five, you would say.
Yeah.
What I really like about podcasts is anything you're looking for, you kind of just scroll through, see that anything kind of catches your eye, right? I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like that anyone that's listening that, can see anything and can relate to you in any way, shape, or form, or sees any micro content from this and is like, they're talking about this or what we tag it with or anything like that. So what would be your biggest advice to anyone coming into the working world, let's say, whether it's entrepreneurship or working for someone else, because you've done both, that you wish you knew when you were young?
Work-life balance, understanding. When you're young, a young entrepreneur particularly, who's got that entrepreneurial spirit, you're willing to pick up cars and put them on your back and, walk across the country, to the extreme.
Yep.
You can't do that forever. Maybe there's a window of time. So having a plan on how you're going to gain the level of success that you want through that hard work, because it does take hard work. Mm-hmm. But what's your exit strategy, or what's your balance point where you're going to bring more people in? And I'm not personally a guy that will build it and they will come. I'm not going to rent 10,000 square feet of office space if I don't already have the business for it.
Yep.
So I'm actually, there we go. So if I had to give people advice, something I think I've done very, very well is I haven't spent money unnecessarily on my business. Yep. So I've really, really kept my costs under control.
Yep.
And, that's served me well.
Yeah. Well, you said two very important things. One is plan, right? And the other one is thinking about an exit strategy. And those are two things that early on I didn't do very well. And it took me a long time to be like, what? Yeah. This is how I make my company valuable, like with these things over here, and I've been doing this over here. But the planning part about it is actually just thinking, what do I want? Like, what kind of life do I want? What direction do I want to go? It's and followed by actually doing it, right? Action's probably the biggest part. But I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
We could probably keep going for about another hour. Mortgages, numbers, math, finances. There's a lot of people who don't like it, who don't understand it. So people like you in your industry that are willing to be open and honest and work for the client and client advocacy. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate being connected to you that way. And I think that you're building a very important thing.
I appreciate that, Dan. It's this business has been. I'm so grateful to have found it, and I will spend my late years in this life advocating for better ways for this business to run, not only provincially but nationally. It's still in its infancy.
Well, come back anytime. We'll plan for round 2 some other time in the future.
Yeah. No, this was fun. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.